Week 2 of the NFL season is in the books, and we've had some shakeup in the AFC North standings. So starting from the top down, the Baltimore Ravens now 2-0 overall, 1-0 in the division. Baltimore is now the only AFC North team that remains undefeated. They beat Cincinnati on the road 27-24, a game that probably wasn't quite as close as the final score would indicate. Zay Flowers with another solid showing. Wasn't all that consistently targeted, but he did have some dynamic plays when he was able to get the ball in his hands. Despite the 24 points that the Bengals did put up, I thought the Bengals offense was pretty stymied for the most part, and I think I want to give a lot of credit to Baltimore's defense for that. Maybe that's just the Bengals offense being a little bit out of sorts, but Baltimore definitely had something to do with that, whether or not it was some internal problems with Cincinnati. I do think the Baltimore defense definitely forced the issue. One touchdown for Cincinnati was on a punt return too, so that was it's even less points for the Bengals offense than you might expect. Lamar Jackson much improved in this game than he was against Houston. Looked more like the quarterback form that is deserving of the contract that he received this offseason. And back on the Baltimore defense, the secondary did pretty admirably despite the injuries that they were facing heading into this game. Even though T. Higgins did have a couple of 50-50 touchdown grabs, that's just T. Higgins being a talented wide receiver and making a couple of plays. I feel like overall the Baltimore defense did a very good job really shutting down the Cincinnati offense there. Ravens running back room of Gus Edwards and Justice Hill really did a nice job of making up for the loss of J.K. Dobbins. Gus Edwards has been a solid contributor for Baltimore for a few years now, it feels like. Ravens fans probably definitely feeling confident in their chances with this division, at least early on, after watching the Monday Night Football game. So the Ravens, they overtake the division lead, and they look to they're going to be trying to run with it the next couple of weeks. Their next game is at home against the Colts with, Anthony Richardson leaving with that concussion. Who knows what the Colts are going to be looking like for Week 3. Speaking of that Monday night game, second place now the Pittsburgh Steelers, 1-1 overall, 1-0 in divisional play. They win 26-22 over Cleveland at home. It was an insane game with a ton of time stoppages. I, like many others, had to go to work early today, so thanks a lot to those two teams for keeping us up as late as possible. I discussed some the game and a lot of its crazy sequences last night in the video that I just made on the channel, but Pittsburgh, I wasn't really talking about the Steelers' perspective of it. They can take away a lot of hope from this game, even though I do think the offense still looked mostly awful for Pittsburgh. The Pickett to Pickens connection had some good moments, but again, for the offense in general, nothing too consistent. I still think Matt Canada is a terrible offensive coordinator. I know most Steeler fans would agree with that sentiment. Nothing's changed on that front, but the Steelers defense, as has been the case for the past few years now, they were dynamic enough to make up for the lack of punch from the Steelers offense. TJ Watt became the all-time sack leader for Pittsburgh, a huge milestone he achieved there. Alex Highsmith had just as, if not more, of an impact on that Pittsburgh defense last night. He had the pick six on the first play of the game, and then he actually forced the fumble on TJ Watt's game-winning fumble recovery touchdown. Steelers pass rush getting to Deshaun Watson 6 times, so anytime you get 6 sacks in a game, you're usually going to come out on the better side of that one with a W. Passing game for Cleveland never really getting going all that much. I'm not really sure how replicable wins like this are, where your defense is scoring more than your offense, and you still eke out a one-score game. But the Steelers, they do find these kind of magic voodoo ways to win, which it's been very Pittsburgh. Somehow they find a way to eke out winning seasons or barely sneak into a playoff berth. Pittsburgh, they aren't in the mud here. They're still very much alive this season, and they're going to try to force these ugly wins against teams having maybe not necessarily a great game, but that's just how Pittsburgh's been rolling. That's how Mike Tomlin's been able to hang around this kind of by some kind of magic or extreme force of will by TJ Watt or somebody else on the defense. They're getting it done because, again, that offense was just was dog water yet again. But Pittsburgh riding the defense, and Presley Harvin punting was also having a tremendous game. He had a really nice game punting the ball, and it is punters can be a weapon to flip the field, and that last night's game was a case of that. The next game for the Steelers will be on the road against the Raiders. They're hoping to try to replicate the success they had last night. And moving on to the losers of that game, the Cleveland Browns fall to 1-1 overall and 1-1 in the division. Week 2 has not been kind to Cleveland in the past 2 seasons, where you had the Jets collapse last year late in that game, giving up that 2-score lead in the final 2 minutes. Wouldn't mind seeing the jerseys that they wore just get burned and never worn again. I think they looked a lot better in promotional material than on the field anyways. And before I do get all negative on the Browns, I do want to say that the defense once again played lights out. Really no complaints from me on the defensive unit for the second straight week of NFL action. They seem like they might be one of the best talented and most well-coached units in the NFL. Jim Schwartz, exactly what this team needed. That Pickens touchdown was a bit of a bad play, but it was just one play, and they gave the offense plenty of chances to counteract that. Again, Jim Schwartz has his group rolling. Grant Delpit looks poised to have a breakout season, so that's nice to see after the ups and downs that he's had, where he missed his entire rookie season with injury. Didn't have the best start last year, although he did get better to end the season. But you still have to put up points. You still have to put up points in the NFL, and I'm not sure if this offense without Nick Chubb can really consistently do that, as Deshaun Watson looked completely awful in the game against Pittsburgh. Not just his play, but there were mental mistakes that killed drives on penalties, whether it's, unnecessary roughness or face mask, just letting the emotions get the best of him. He was throwing guys like 10 yards out of bounds, lost 2 fumbles, and he had the pick 6 early, which the pick 6, it was a dropped pass, but still not the most well-placed ball. And now you don't have a guy like Nick Chubb to bail you out if Watson has a stinker, which is becoming more and more of the norm. We haven't really seen Deshaun Watson take really any consistent forward steps in a Browns uniform, and with the conditions being as good as they were, and he's had a whole offseason and preseason reps and game reps now to get used to it, and he's getting paid the kind of money where it's no excuse for Deshaun Watson. He's getting paid no excuses money, so I'm not going to try to sugarcoat his performance by anything. It was just bad and unacceptable, and you're not going to be able to win many football games if your quarterback plays like that. Being 1-1 isn't insurmountable, obviously, but the offense that Browns fans saw last night isn't really going to be beating anyone anytime soon. And then getting to the still basement-dwelling Bengals, 0-2 overall and also 0-2 in the division. Another slow start for Cincinnati. They were able to overcome this last season, but this season does feel a little bit different. For one, they didn't start 0-2, losing 2 divisional games last year, so they're in a hole as far as climbing up the AFC North ranks could go. And 2, Joe Burrow seems like he might have tweaked his calf a little bit on the back end of this game. If it was bugging him this bad headed into the season, probably shouldn't have been playing. I know that's not in Joe Burrow's DNA to sit down if he can play, and if you start Jake Browning, you are almost admitting defeat. But if he wasn't ready to go week 1 against the Browns fully 100% healthy, and there was any risk of him re-aggravating this injury, I'm not really sure what he's doing out there. It's a long season. They still have plenty of time. No reason to rush Joe Burrow back at this point. And now you might have to just start Jake Browning anyways, or maybe Greer if they choose to go that route, I guess. The offense put up 17 points. It still felt like they were rowing through choppy waters, even though they did eventually get an offensive touchdown in the second half of this game. Both of the touchdowns were, T. Higgins winning 50-50 balls, which is good. T. Higgins is a very talented wide receiver. That is a good recipe to throw him the ball, but it's not like their offensive scheme was constantly keeping Baltimore's defense on their toes or anything. So they were able to make the game interesting at the end there, but they had to put together a comeback effort in order to do so, and it never really felt like that comeback effort would pan out either way. Again, I do feel like that loss to the Ravens, that final score makes it look a lot closer than the game felt. And it's going to be their turn to be on Monday Night Football next week. They host the Rams on Monday Night Football. And while for the AFC North, the top 3 has experienced a shift in power, and the Bengals remain in the basement. But again, at this point, everyone's still in control of their own destiny. Nothing has been settled as of yet. And while there might be some trends we can look at moving forward, again, basically everything is up in the air. None of these teams are thinking about, none of these teams are thinking about their draft pick for this upcoming year. They're all trying to get aspirations of winning this division. It's just going to be a matter of how these results fall for the next few weeks and beyond. So thank you all for watching. If you made it this far into the video, leave a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed the content and you'd like to see more like it. You can let me know what you thought about the AFC North action this week down in the comments below, and I will see you at the next one.